Hey everyone, and welcome to Parenting Stuff I Wish I Knew Sooner and Want You to Know Now. I am your host, Erica Desper. I'm the founder of the Center for Confident Parenting, and I am a mom who has seemed to learn everything I needed to know the hard way. Today, I am joined by Dr. Stephanie Lint. She is mom to three young children, as well as owner and lead pediatric physical therapist at Play at Home PT, which provides home-based physical therapy services to children ages birth to 5 years in the greater Philadelphia area. Stephanie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I always love having you. I'm excited. All right. So, you are a professional. You are also a mom. Let's dig into how that started. Tell us a bit about your growing family and how you came across or came upon the idea to create Play at Home PT.
Sure. I'm a mom of three. I have a 6-year-old daughter, Sophie, a 5-year-old daughter, Maddie, and an 8-month-old son, Nolan. Um,
That
and
sounds fun.
it it is total chaos, but in the best way most times. I actually first got the idea for play at home physical therapy when my oldest Sophie was born. She had torticollis and a little flat spot and a tongue tie when she was born, and she had a really challenging time with her feeding. We were seeing a lot of specialists, like a lactation consultant and a speech therapist for the feeding. And they were all coming to our home for her treatment for all her issues. And I was doing a lot of her physical therapy myself for her torticollis, but eventually I just wanted to be mom. So I asked
Sure.
a PT friend of mine to come and treat her in our home, too, because I was just so overwhelmed with the thought of taking my little baby out for a weekly appointment to a clinic.
Hmm.
Um, and I was dealing with a lot of postpartum anxiety with your first, like, didn't
Sure.
really know what I was doing and all these feeding issues. Everyone just says, like, breastfeed, it's easy. And then, like, it's not
Right.
easy at all. So I just felt like I needed someone to come to me.
Mhm.
It took me about 4 years to actually act on this idea of having like a mobile physical therapy practice for kids. But
Mhm.
I am really glad that I did. Now I'm able to provide that really high quality personalized PT in the home and really do things how I want them to be done. And it's been
Yeah.
great.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. I think,
Thank you.
almost everyone I've spoken to so far, I know all the people I align myself with, we all kind of came to things in a similar way. We experienced a need, maybe something we wished we had, didn't have. That gave us our idea. Why can't I provide this for someone, which I think is great.
Yeah.
So can you speak a bit about the jump from two kids to three or even one to two? You've jumped a lot. What's awesome about it? What's challenging about it?
Oh yes, jump is a good word. Um, so, so my daughters are 18 months apart. So going from one to two was crazy because I had two babies. But it was also a little bit easier because we hadn't left the baby stage yet. So we were still in it, doing diapers, all of that. So it had its ups and downs, but I mean, that was very hard to juggle two babies. Um, but the jump from two to three was totally out of the ordinary. Nothing like we expected, because I had a major health crisis after my son was born. Um, I think it's really important to talk about these things because so many people go through complications postpartum, and I just feel like it's not always talked about, and you're trying
Sure.
to soak up every minute, but it was really, really awful. um, I had to go undergo treatment for a really rare autoimmune disorder that I developed when he was 2 weeks old,
Mm.
and it involved a lot of neurologic deficits, which was crazy because as a PT, I worked with a lot of kids with these neurologic deficits. So I kind of like had an idea like what I was experiencing when I was describing it to doctors, and they're kind of like, "Oh, she must be googling." I'm like, "No, no, no. I actually like I know what this is, not myself, but
Oh man, that
like
must have burned you up.
like no, it wasn't Dr. Google. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure I know like these symptoms I'm having, but I just didn't know what it was. Like eventually I couldn't even walk up and down the stairs. I was like bumping up and down the stairs on my butt. I couldn't walk and hold
Mm.
my baby at the same time. So it was a major adjustment. And also, I mean, I was just going through it mentally. Um,
Mhm.
so like once that was under control, we seemed to like kind of gel as a family of five. But of course, Nolan, my baby, was very colicky and fussy
Mm.
and screamed for the first 12 weeks of his life.
I've
Um,
been there.
yeah, yeah. So on top of like, mom is basically like down for the count. He was so fussy. But we just kind of had to deal with it because we have older kids. He's a third kid. We had summer fun
Yeah.
things to do. Like
Yep.
I would just strap him on in the infant carrier and like we were going places. So
Yeah.
it really was, so obviously like a lot of challenges, but it really was amazing to see my daughters with him, because now they're old enough to really understand what's going on, which is very, very different from the jump from 1 to 2 when my oldest was a baby still.
Right.
Um,
Right.
they were just beyond excited to have a baby brother and tried to help so much.
I'm sure their help
And
was always helpful.
right, the most helpful. Um, but like now it's so much more fun because he's like interacting and he's babbling and of course like trying to bite them and pull their hair. But like they don't like if it was each other doing that, they would be
Right.
screaming. But like if it's the baby, they're like, oh, this is so
Little and
funny.
super cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome,
Um,
awesome. I had no idea, until you told me that you had gone through all of that. And I think you're right. We do need, once we're ready, we do need to talk about it, and not to terrify people, but to just know that, things can happen, and you may not be able to savor every moment of it, and that's okay. But also, like, here you are on the other side. Now it's fun. Now
yes.
it's manageable. It wasn't forever. And I think that's when you're in it, any kind of moment, it can feel so indefinite and, lengthy, but nothing is
Yeah.
forever.
I especially like you took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say like showing that like what it's like on the other side now. Like I still worry, like what could maybe like trigger it like
Hmm.
to relapse,
Sure.
like because I don't know since I've only been through it once. And I'm hoping that it's a one and done thing because I was postpartum and it was like a very
Right.
specific set of circumstances that brought it on. But yeah, I mean like it always is kind of there, but
Yeah.
I am on the other side now and like it does get better. But yeah, it was a wild time.
Wow. Well, I'm glad. I'm very glad to hear that you're doing better. I hope it was a one-time thing too. Now I think I need to interview your partner, because wow, that must have been a lot
Oh
for
my gosh.
dad to be like, wait, what? Like, now I
Yes,
have
I mean,
three
like,
littles and my wife is down for the count.
yes, and like, I mean, I was hospitalized for 4 days, down at HUP, like when Nolan was 2 weeks old. So he's there with the kids, and luckily, like, we do have grandparents.
Yeah.
Both sets of parents are in the area, so I mean, it was like all hands on deck,
Yep.
like full support from everybody. But yeah, I mean, he
Wow.
he did
Scary.
all the overnight, like every night, like those 4 nights in a row, like the whole night with him getting the kids down by himself. It
Yeah.
was crazy. Yeah, I think he
Yeah.
might be a little traumatized by that.
I'm sure. Plus, like, he didn't probably even have time to fully worry about you, because, which maybe was a good thing to keep him busy, but like, you don't even get to have the time you need to process what's going on yourself. It's just so hard. Just
Oh
like
yeah.
we never really fully get to go down for the count, unless it's something extreme where you land in the hospital. When does mom get to be sick? There's still kids that need to be cared for. So it's, none
Right.
of it is fair, but it is what it is.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I'm sure he's thrilled that you are back back in action.
Oh
So
yeah.
now that you are fully back in action, talk to us about, as the owner of a team of therapists and then a brood of three young children, work-life balance. Is that even a thing for you? I feel like we toss that around, just like we toss around self-care, but does anyone know what it actually means? And are any of
Self-care.
us doing it? So, work-life balance, is that a thing for you? And if it is, how are you making that possible?
So I will say that yes, now the work life balance is probably my favorite part about being a business owner, which sounds crazy, because it was so much work to get the business operating. And, like maybe I've, I've blocked that part out because it was like so intense for such a long time. Um, but I mean, the first 2 years, was treating patients during the day, or I was doing admin tasks because it was just me at that time. So I was doing all the insurance billing. I was taking all the phone calls and emails from prospective families, like coordinating everything. Um, and then I would, once would treat patients, I would come home, I would be with my family. And then once the kids were down for the night, I would work in my office until maybe like 11 or 12 at night. And that was like nearly every night for 2 years, and absolutely not sustainable for the long term.
Sure.
And I cannot do that now because I was so burnt out. Like the thought of working now after the kids are asleep, just like I just can't bring myself to do it. But now that the business, we're 4 years in now, so it's fully functioning, and I have an amazing team with an administrative assistant, and I have other therapists now to share the workload with. I can really enjoy being a working mom. Um, so, I can be the homeroom parent for my daughter's first grade class. I can stay home when the kids are sick if I need to, which has been way more than I had anticipated,
Just all the time.
especially the last couple weeks. Oh my gosh, it's been insane. Um,
Yeah. And now,
and
as we're recording this, we are recovering from snow and ice and anticipating another night and morning of
oh
snow
yeah,
and
I
ice.
think our school district is anticipating a virtual day, and I
Hmm.
was lucky enough to like during COVID when that was happening in the schools, like my kids were 3 and 1.5. So I didn't have to deal with that. So this is like, it might be my very first ever virtual school day experience as a mom. So like, I don't
Oh,
know
get
how to feel
ready.
about it. I don't
You'll
know
know.
how to feel.
You'll know soon enough.
I know, like, I don't think I'm excited about it.
I
I
won't
can,
color your expectations. I'll just let it happen.
yeah, yeah. But like, I can do it at least. Like, I don't know how I would be able with all like the lack of predictability, like with kids. I feel like I don't know how I would be able to do it. Like I feel like I would have been fired from another job if I
Mm,
like had to take off so much. So
it's a
like,
real thing.
I guess like it is worth those like late nights in the beginning. But also like I think really like recognizing like when enough is enough and you need
Hmm.
help. That I think for me
Absolutely.
was the biggest thing. Like I kind of had someone, like I didn't even think of it myself. Someone pointed out to me, they were like, why don't you just, like maybe hire an admin to help you
Right.
with like the insurance stuff? And I was like, oh, yeah,
Right.
like
Oh,
I
that.
don't have to do it all by
Right.
myself.
Yeah. We shouldn't have to. Whether it's just momming or mom and business or whatever, everyone has a different situation and no judgment there. But yeah, I mean, just delegate. We have an earlier episode about giving yourself permission to delegate and then building a village around you that you can delegate to, whether it's friends and family or, paid services or whatever. And I think we're all definitely in alignment with that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, so despite your professional pediatric background, do you like, are those things ever separate? Do you ever feel like you don't know what you're doing as a parent, or are you doing all the right things, like lots and lots of tummy time and don't put, Nolan in a container or for too long, or like what does that look like when you have both the professional background and then but you're also like just a mom in that moment?
Oh yeah. I mean, all the time. I feel I don't know what I'm doing. Like my poor oldest is like forever the science experiment because she's always going to be the first one to like go through some of these things, and we have to figure it out on her. But like before I had kids, I thought I knew so much about how to take care of babies. I'd been working with kids, and I'd even been working in the NICU for like 5 years before I had Sophie. So I did have a lot of that experience, but there is nothing like having your own kid. and being a mom, especially for the first time. Like I just feel like your medical knowledge, whatever you have, just totally goes out the window when it's your
Mhm.
own kid. Like all your emotions are so heightened when it's your own kid, and you just forget all logic. I
Yeah.
feel. So like, at least I do have the peds background with the developmental aspect. So like I do know the activities I could do with my babies. And I do know when I should worry about those things, like from the development standpoint, which is good. And I do try hard to do the right things. Like, I do try to do the tummy time as best I can. I definitely use containers when I need to. Like I always educate parents to like use them as a tool for you. And I do try to stick with that. But sometimes like I just like need a break too. And,
Right.
it doesn't, you're not damaging your baby
Right.
like
Well, and
here.
we're throwing around lingo, but for anyone that's like, why are they putting their baby in what is it,
Oh,
Tupperware? We're
right.
talking
Yeah.
about like
Yeah.
swings, bouncy seats, exercisers, things that contain the baby.
Yes, thank you. I just yeah, like that is like a total therapy speak term. It's like a
Yeah.
catch-all term for like all of the little things that contain your baby.
Right.
So like, you'll if
Versus them
you
being held or like even flat on the like their play mat.
yes, exactly. So like if you follow like my Instagram, like I post, you know, uh, here and there about avoiding containers and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's like a big thing that I like to talk about, especially with like parent education. But
Mm.
I also like lay it out there as a fellow parent to be like, I know that you have to use them. Like I know that this is
We
going to
have
be
to
part
keep
of
it
your daily
realistic.
routine. Let's like try to work it out so that we can make it work for everybody.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, in
yeah,
doing
so
the sleep stuff that I do, parents often stress about, naps on the go or, whatever. And I say, like, think of it like, I don't know if this analogy resonates with you, but think of it like junk food. Like, can you eat junk food? Sure. Sprinkle it into your week. But you don't want all of your meals to consist of solely junk food all the time. So, like, yeah, use the containers when you need to, or you just want to for a little bit, but just make sure the majority of the time, they're not in there for too long of a stretch too often. I think that's kind of what you're going for, right?
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I know you said before you are often your own worst critic. Is that how we would sum up do you do all the right things about parenting?
Right. Like I yes. So yes. Like I try to do the best I can, but like, and I tell my families this too. Like when I recommend home exercises, like if your babies are unpredictable at times, like if they're having a hard day, or if you're having a hard day and you don't get to the exercises, like not to beat yourself up about it. Usually things even out over the course of a week, and like I'm not going to shame you about not doing them like every single day.
Mhm.
So I try to follow my own advice, but it is hard.
Yeah,
Mom guilt is very real.
very real, and everything's much easier said than done. So we
Mhm.
want to
Absolutely.
keep it real here. One thing I am always putting out to our audience and will never stop putting out there and emphasizing is the importance of trusting as the parent, trusting your gut. If you think something is off or needs to be explored, and being the squeaky wheel about that gut feeling, if and when you need to be. And unfortunately, sometimes we do, whether it's, our pediatrician kind of poo poos it or a teacher at school. And we've certainly experienced this in our family quite a bit. So my trusting my gut and being the squeaky wheel muscle is quite enlarged at this point. I would like to help others along that journey. So, along those lines, when should a parent be concerned? When should they reach out to a PT?
Right. So I think it's so important for parents to trust their gut and advocate for their kids. You know, do parents know everything about medicine as your like that your pediatrician does? No, but you are the expert on your kid.
Mhm.
And so that is so important to advocate. And it is so disappointing when like your concerns are dismissed. So as far as when to be concerned goes, I always start in the newborn phase. And so I'll tell parents, if you're seeing a head turn preference, which means just like turning the head to pretty much like one side all the time, or a head tilt toward one side all the
Mhm.
time, or a flat spot developing on the back of their head, to definitely bring that up to the pediatrician. these are all signs of torticollis, and it can be treated so quickly with early referral. So it is really important to get PT started, pretty much as soon as you can. Um, and then other concerns, like in this little baby phase, can be difficulty with tummy time, not meeting their milestones within the expected range. And there is a range for a reason. So, like, some kids are just earlier in that range, some kids are right in the middle, some kids are at the end, and it's still considered normal. It's just, I think it's hard for the parents whose kids are at the end of the normal range, because you're just like waiting and waiting, and then your kid finally hits the milestone that you've been waiting for. But there is a range for a reason. Or like if your baby feels overly stiff or overly floppy in their muscles, or if they're preferring doing everything to one side versus the other. And then, like, in toddlerhood, or once they start walking, if they're walking a lot on their tiptoes, like I would say more than half the time up on their tiptoes, that's a good time to bring that up to your pediatrician.
Yeah. And I'm sure you would add, if anything's worrying you, like,
Yeah,
why just sit with the worry? Like, the worst that would happen is you do a not super involved PT evaluation and you find out
exactly.
they're great. Or you're maybe on somebody's radar and they say, this is still within normal range, so let's come back and check on it, by a certain date, so your kid just doesn't get lost in the shuffle.
Exactly. Because like you said, like there is no harm in doing in getting a PT evaluation, even if it's just for reassurance. Like, there is no harm in it. I think there is more harm in waiting.
Yes. So two things on that note. I think it's really helpful for parents to hear, as someone who has often been overwhelmed, like you described, with appointments and home exercises and everyone's suggestions and fitting those all together. It's not always overwhelming, right? Like, someone could have a pretty quick and easy evaluation. Maybe it's even in home, which takes a lot of the pressure off the family. And I mean, is it a real thing that sometimes we're doing a very limited number of sessions and then a child is discharged?
So it depends on the facility. So,
I know I didn't prep you for this question.
oh, no, 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 that's okay. I just to make sure I understand it. So, are you saying, like,
I think parents are often worried, like, oh, if I go that route, we're locking ourselves into this like whole thing, like forever. We're going to have these appointments forever.
okay, thank you for clarifying. Sorry, I think I misunderstood it the first time. So basically, no, like if you are, no, every kid is different.
Sure.
Every kid is not just going for torticollis. There are some other underlying things, or like maybe we are in the process of maybe figuring out a cause for these other issues that the kid is having. So depending on the diagnosis and the treatment plan, if you do start early, I always think that that is a better indicator of having like less therapy over time.
Yeah.
But like,
That's the piece
especially,
I really want them to hear. Like, if you do it early, it may actually be faster and easier. Whereas if you wait,
yes,
you may be looping yourself into a much more involved process that's harder for your baby to get through.
yes, exactly. And like, especially for torticollis, which
Hmm.
like I treat frequently, like that is my soapbox right there. Like, get those babies in early, because it is, I mean, it's like plain as day, like in all the research, like if you get them in before 2 months old, they will have a much shorter bout of PT. Like, it's
Hmm.
just, or even like, I actually been getting a lot lately of kids who are probably like in the 15 to 16 month range who are not walking,
Hmm.
and they'll get referred, and then I can get them walking typically by 18 months, which is like that like end of that normal range
Yep.
that the AAP considers to be normal. So, they're getting in and they're now caught up in a
Hmm.
matter of like 2 to 3 months.
Hmm.
So it's usually like one session a week. So it's not like every like 2 to 3 times a week for 2 to 3 months. It's like you have like maybe like 8 sessions, and
Right.
then
Right.
and
And I
then
think that's
they're
really
caught up.
helpful to hear. And that's the other thing I
Yeah,
want families to hear is like, I know sometimes it can be scary to find out, like, hear a word like torticollis or, flathead and helmet and all that stuff. But like, once it's addressed and your kid catches up, that's typically the end of that. I mean, if someone has some sort of, ongoing medical condition, disorder, whatever, maybe that's a different scenario. But this is sort of like, get them up to speed. We all move on and kind of forget about it. And then all the other things that are still to develop can be on their way. Like, I would imagine if we're waiting and seeing on one thing, that could impact the next stage that needs to happen, which might be another reason to get in soon.
right, exactly.
Yeah. So why then? Here's another question I didn't prep you for, Steph. Uh, glad you like me. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I also know in doing what I do for a living that parents are constantly being told to wait and see. What do you
Yes.
think? Like, what do you think is going on there? Let's say a parent has trusted their gut. They go to their pediatrician. They say, "Here's what I'm seeing. I'm really worried about it," and they're told, "Wait and see." What do they do next, and why are they being told that? If we have all this research that earlier is better, and without throwing anyone
So,
under the bus, of course.
right. So I I don't know why. I think maybe the reason that people are told to wait and see are maybe not to like alarm parents and get
Mhm.
them overly worried, which I can fully appreciate. Like I can fully appreciate that. Um, but there's like a give and take to that. So when we're doing that and it really would just benefit kids to get intervention, then we're putting the kid at a disservice at that point. If it's to keep parents, not stressed out and things like that, I can understand. But there's so much research now, so much. I don't understand the waiting and seeing approach, especially with like pediatric PT stuff,
Mhm.
because there is so much to support the early referral. I mean, that's the whole purpose of early intervention,
Yes.
like the birth to 3 program, because there is so much like neuroplasticity in a kid's brain in those young age,
Mhm.
which means that like areas of the brain can kind of like not take over, but they can help out other areas of the brain that
Mhm.
maybe aren't like firing at full speed.
Right.
So you there's so much more potential for improvement then. So
Mm.
I just sometimes, it gets really frustrating. you
Yeah, and
know
I really want parents to know how common that response is,
yes.
and you don't have to accept it. I mean, I'm sure it can feel like a relief. Oh, my pediatrician's not worried, so I should stop being worried. But they may not be right. And if you are still worried or you just want to be absolutely sure, let's say it's you, Steph, you're the parent, you bring up this concern, they say, wait and see, we'll check on it later. What's your next move if your pediatrician
Yeah,
isn't
so
worried?
I will say I am very lucky. I have never my I love my pediatrician. I love her so much and I will recommend her to anybody. Um so I've been like really lucky in that I've like never had my concerns with her dismissed at all. Um but I have worked with lots of parents
Mhm.
who have had concerns dismissed, and so I will usually say, like, so it can be tough because if like a kid needs a script to like start therapy, or needs a referral if they have like an HMO plan and they can't get their referral, like that's really tough. So when that happens, I see like maybe you can see another doctor in your practice and see what they
Mhm.
think. Um, I don't think you should take one professional's word as like, this is it, this is concrete, this is what it like, that's my one answer, especially
Mhm.
if you're still concerned. So that, and also you can just, for PT, you can call if like, so like for example, I have something called direct access, which means I'm allowed to evaluate a kid without a script, and I can see them for 30 days until they
Mm.
need a script. So what I will do is I will just encourage people to make an appointment anyway.
Hmm.
And once I actually have like the evaluation report done and documented, I send that over to the pediatrician so that they have it like, these are the deficits I'm seeing. These are
It's
like
just a backdoor
data.
way sort of to get confirmation of
Yes,
either way that they were right, nothing's wrong, or so, hey, there is something going on.
exactly.
That's
Exactly.
awesome that that is an option.
Yeah,
Wonderful. And of course, families could choose to pay privately and not go through their insurance.
exactly.
Hmm. Okay, awesome. Anything else that you wanted to say about the need for early referral? I think we pretty much covered it, but I might have also cut you
Yeah,
off.
I mean, no, we definitely did cover it. I mean,
Okay.
um, just that like there is more harm. I think like take home messages, there is more harm in waiting to intervene than just trusting your gut and getting an evaluation
Mhm.
and either confirming your concerns or reassuring you that your baby is right on track. Um,
Awesome.
so I think
There's your
that's like the
takeaway.
the take home message thing.
Great. All right. I can let you go soon. But for this last question, take your professional hat back off. Put only your mom hat back on. I end with the same question for all of my guests. What is one thing that you have learned, or actually, everyone so far has done two things on your parenting journey that we haven't touched on yet, that you wish you knew sooner and you want other parents to know now? Or maybe something we have touched on that you want to emphasize a little bit more?
Yeah. Oh, what a good one. So I think as far as like mom life goes, I think it is understanding and accepting that your kids are born with their little personalities and that it's my job as their mom to figure out who they are, what they like and listen to them so that I can help them, fully become who they want to be. Um, so like I'm not signing my kids up for activities without, now when they were when they were one, yeah, like we went to story time and we did like parent child swim lessons and gymnastics because like I wanted to do stuff with them and they didn't know any better. But like now that they have their own experiences and thoughts and feelings in the world, I'm always asking them if they want to try something before just like signing them up.
Mhm.
Or like my oldest Sophie is super into science and the solar system. So we are nerding out with her over the solar system and she asks us for a new fact every single night before she goes to bed. Um, my younger daughter Maddie is a collector of random objects.
Oh, I love that.
So we are getting her little things and like get it. She has like a rock tumbler where it like smooths out
Oh,
rocks. Like so we're doing that with her. And I think like once you like really come to terms like that you're like with who your kids really are, it just make things so much easier and there's less tension. You're not like forcing them to go to things they don't want to go to. It's
mhm.
just better. And along those lines of activities, I think I really like overdid it when they were little as far as like signing them up for things.
Mm,
And now I just feel like I wish I wouldn't have overscheduled my family as much as I did. I think like they don't kids that little don't need all that stuff to do. I think it's more like me, like I wanted to stay busy and this was
well, and I
pre-pan.
think the first time around, we wanna try all the things we've been seeing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I wanna try the Mommy and Me class. I wanna do the play groups.
Yeah, which are like they are really fun, but you don't have to do them all. And
Mhm,
like and this was also pre-pandemic. I think the going through the pandemic has like drastically changed my just like my life approach and
mhm.
especially parenting approach. Like that time when they are little just goes by so fast and like adding all that extra stress with like scheduling and going to and from activities, it just like I think it just like can really take away from like those moments where you're just like at home as a family. And I just wish I maybe would have like pumped the brakes a little bit on that.
Yeah, that's a really, really good tip because some of us feel like we need to overschedule either for ourselves or for our children.
Mhm.
I'm actually going to ask one more question. I know I said that was my last one, but you just did a little bit of a true confession there with a regret that you shared with
Mm-hmm.
us. And I am adamant that I'm going to keep this podcast very real. So a lot of what we
Oh
talked
yeah.
about today was positive, loving your three kids and having the work-life balance and all those great things. So at the risk of someone hearing this and being like, well, she's got it all together. Isn't that great? We don't want to send anyone off like that. So what I didn't ask you is, what are you still finding, still with just your mom hat back on, what's really challenging right now for you in your parenting
How
journey?
much time do you have? Um,
Plenty of time. I could break this into two if I want to.
yeah. So, there are plenty of challenges. So, yeah, I mean, like, things are nice and great sometimes. But there is a lot of so being outnumbered. Number one is
Mm,
like the biggest challenge, but it's not just like just being outnumbered. It's like the toll it takes because I cannot meet everyone's needs, including like my own.
mm,
So I think with the kids, I do try. I really want to do like one-on-one time with them. Like each of the kids. I mean, the baby gets a lot of my time, so he doesn't need more one-on-one time with me. But like my daughters, like I do really try to do one-on-one time with them. But it's really, really hard. Like during the school week, we're not getting home off the bus until 4. We're not getting home from daycare till 4:30, 5 o'clock. So there's like not a whole lot of time left in the day for like to make that connection and make sure everyone's like emotional needs are met, as well as like getting schoolwork done and prepping for the next day. And so I do like really, really feel bad about that. Um, like just that
the mom
inability.
guilt, man.
Yes, like it just it does eat at me. And especially like I'm learning like my girls like love languages basically like my middle actually, not my baby, my middle, Maddie, she like really loves like the touch. So like she likes to snuggle. She also she would watch TV for 24 hours straight if given the option. So she's like a total couch potato.
It's
But
tempting.
that's what she loves to do. And so like she wants to snuggle. And my oldest really likes quality time, but more in the form of like reading books or doing crafts together or like just like playing with like her dolls and things like that. So like I'm trying to do it in their specific way too. And I mean, there's just not enough hours in the day. And then I'll have to add that in when Nolan is old enough to like really
Right.
like need that like one-on-one. Oh,
Yeah, that is a big, big challenge.
yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it's not awesome to have the challenge, but it is awesome for us to keep this really real. I remember many years ago, I think it was Oprah had an episode talking about people not loving every minute of becoming a mother. And I remember it was like revolutionary and controversial,
Oh, yeah.
to which
Well,
I was like,
because
duh.
right, like, well, because like, to like add on to what I said before, like when you are not meeting everyone's needs, then the kids are fighting. They're having tantrums. They're melting down. They are like they're not listening because they like need that extra attention. So I think like the aftermath of me not being able to like meet all those emotional needs is that they have these outbursts and it's really tough, and especially like we've been dealing with illness and snow days and 4-day weekends with holidays and the other holidays that in
Yep.
December, like
Mhm.
the kids have been home so much, and I just feel like it's been like constant struggle probably like the last month, because like the routine is gone.
Yep.
And yeah, so I think like the aftermath of all that too is just it's really tough.
Yep. And yet, all of our Facebook feeds look totally lovely, like we're
Hmm.
having a ball and we have it all together. So don't fall for that.
Right.
People only show you what they want to show you and they only talk about what they want to talk about. So, yeah, we're keeping it real here. And I super appreciate you sharing all that.
Of
All
course.
right. I could hang out with you forever, but we will call it here. I will have you back, I'm sure, many more times Stephanie, thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back soon, listeners, with more stuff that I wish I knew sooner. In the meantime, I'll leave you with my list of the top 4 things I learned the hardest way. And as always, they are: accept help when it is offered, ask for it when it isn't. You are the expert on your child. Trust your gut. And if you need to be the squeaky wheel. Bye, everyone.